Agreement, of course, was reached in the city of Kyoto. And what was interesting was several things came out of that. But the first thing was that not all countries had to participate in Kyoto, but not all had to take action. Only the developed nations were required to reduce their level of CO2. The developing nations were excluded. Now, of course, at that time, China was, and in some ways you can argue it still is, a developing nation. So it wasn't required to meet any targets under Kyoto, nor was India. The U.S., of course, held out. And what's interesting is that the U.S. Senate voted 95-0 against the Kyoto Accord, even though Al Gore was the vice president at the time. And lucky for him, he didn't have to cast a deciding vote. But so it was 95-0 against it, because the U.S. Senate saw, no, this is a socialist distribution of wealth. This is going to cost jobs and economy, and so they scrapped it completely.
We're now told that you have to buy carbon offsets. In other words, if you have sinned by having a carbon footprint and by carbon emissions, you've got to buy a carbon offset, which is usually a scam. Somebody claims to have planted an acre of grass in the third world. It never happened. They take your money and laugh all the way to the bank. But they're telling you that in order to cleanse your guilt, you've got to buy a carbon offset.
Talk about carbon polluters. You talk about them. It's my understanding that back in 1997, when you were vice president, Enron's CEO, Ken Lay, was involved in discussions with you at the White House about helping develop this type of policy, this trading scheme. And is that accurate? Is it inaccurate? It's been reported.
I don't know, but I met with Ken Lay, as lots of people did, before anybody knew that he was a crook.
Right, and clearly you can see why so many of us are concerned about this type of cap-and-trade energy tax that would be literally turning over this country's energy economy.
I didn't know him well enough to call him Kenny Boy.
Well, but you knew him well enough to help devise this trading scheme, and obviously we know what Enron and these big guys on Wall Street like Goldman Sachs, and I know you've got interest with Goldman Sachs.
No.
Well, that's been reported. Is that not accurate?
No, I wish I did.
With executives from you're partnered in companies with executives from Goldman Sachs. Well, if you're not.
Al Gore has got to be the greatest con artist in modern history. This guy claims he invented the internet, even though it's on record he's a liar, and he got away with it. He was the pitch man that successfully sold, as vice president, NAFTA and GATT. That's lowered the standard of living in the United States and Mexico and almost completely deindustrialized our country. Now he's saying you should pay him and his private company, set up by Enron, a carbon tax on breathing. Look, if you want to buy Al Gore's propaganda, go ahead. But before you do that, you should at least look into the claims he's making.
There was a meeting in the White House in 1998 between Al Gore and Bill Clinton, Ken Lay, and Lord Brown. Okay, well, who were these people? Well, we know the president, the vice president. Ken Lay, of course, was the president of Enron. And Enron was a major, major player in the carbon credit, carbon trading. And in fact, stood to make an enormous amount of money out of it. And so it was part of I think, part of the collapse of Enron. And Lord Brown, of course, was the head of the largest oil company in the world. And they were looking to buy into this, as is happening now, where the energy companies are becoming the big promoters of, oh, we got to go green, we got to go to alternate energies, and all of this this stuff. They saw a business opportunity and leapt onto it, and one that would make them look green again.
History has proven Al Gore wrong when he championed NAFTA. It cost Americans millions of jobs, and now we prepare to follow him down the global warming path, one which he stands to make millions from via carbon taxes, as Americans lose even more jobs and suffer higher taxes. Why does the media proclaim this con artist a genius? And more importantly, why do we go for it? Next, you'll hear from Lord Monkton, an insider.
Of who paid for the test. I've often wondered, these scientists that all sign on to the Al Gore thing, how many of them get their funding from the federal government?
Well, 99%. nearly all of science is now funded by the state. Effectively, scientific research is what's known to economists as a monopsony. There's only one customer. And the quickest way to make money, if you are in that situation and you are a scientist, and particularly in the unloved corner of science, which climatology used to be, is to get a really big scare going and then say, we are the only people that can stop this scare and we can save the world, and therefore throw us lots of money. And if you read the stimulus package, you'll find that NOAA and NASA have received tens of billions in additional funding, and NASA has been retasked from being a space agency to being a climate change monitoring agency. That is now its primary function. And they are laughing all the way to the bank, having trousered your primary function. And they are laughing all the way to the bank, having trousered your taxpayers' money.
Yeah, just on a quick financial point, tens of billions of dollars have been spent by the U.S. government alone promoting man-made global warming. Al Gore has pledged to spend $300 million himself. So the bottom line is, when people say the oil funded, the money, the skeptics get funded, you'll hear that often. They point to ExxonMobil getting $19 or $20 million over 2 decades as proof that, you know, the skeptics are funded. One USDA farm grant to study how farm owners contribute to global warming exceeded all the money ExxonMobil ever had been accused of giving to global warming skeptical groups. So the bottom line is, not only is the argument, the money is so much on the other side, it's literally become the best science politics can manufacture, especially when you look at the UN. The name of the UN panel, by the way, is the Intergovernmental Panel. And in case anyone doesn't understand, it's political.
More now than there were in the 1940s. Hardly, as he may think, the profile of a species in imminent threat of extinction in need of such protection. Unfortunately, we are no longer dealing with rationality. One of the most serious spin-offs from this global warming nonsense, among politicians in particular, is that we are passing, partly through incompetence, partly through scientific ignorance and illiteracy, and partly through malice, from the age of enlightenment and reason in which you and I were born, into what could be, unless we stop it, a new dark age.
Delicious drink on TV. All right, we're going to go back to the clip here in just a moment. What do I talk about in Endgame? Blueprint for global enslavement. I talk about a new dark age dawning upon the globe. An engineered dark age. It's mainly through malice. Yes, the dumbed down, mindless public who believes carbon dioxide is a chemical weapon, they're falling to a new dark age through ignorance. But the controllers all know this is a sick joke. They want a world government to carry out the orderly extermination of the population. As Dr. Eric Pianka said at UT, as this film shows, and the exact same quotes are in this textbook, Eco-Science, that I talk so much about by this White House science czar, where they say a planetary regime to carry out forced abortion and infanticide and population reduction. They want to shut down industry that they don't own. They want you dead. You got that? These are the most demonic creatures ever seen. Grow up. Hitler wanted to kill people. Stalin wanted to kill people. Mao killed between 60 and 80 million. This is what these people do. Grow up. How do you think authoritarian tyranny would come here? They brainwash your kids that if it's for the environment, do it. Oh, we've got a home inspect. Oh, we got to take over your farm and ranch. Oh, we can't let you release water vapor from your factory. Oh, carbon dioxide. You got to pay us